Hey buddy, watch this.
Hello, Regis Kilbin is the name, and Hearthstone is the game. And today I'm taking a look at my top 10 Paladin cards. These are the 10 Paladin cards that have been the most impactful and influential in the metagame, not just today, but through the recent history of the Paladin class in Hearthstone. These are the cards that you hate to see when you're playing a Paladin that's usually putting them ahead or winning them the game, and these are the cards that you absolutely love to have in your hand anytime you're playing Paladin. So without further delay, let's go ahead and jump right into the list, starting with number 10. This is a card by the name of Murloc Knight. This 4 mana minion is only 3/4 in stats, which doesn't sound like a lot for 4 mana, but it has an incredibly powerful effect. Anytime you use your hero power to activate this Inspire effect, you summon a random Murloc. Now, if you consider all the Murlocs that are in the game, you can see that you'll have a nice array of different minions. Sometimes summoning something as amazing as an old Merc guy or a Murloc War Leader, or even another Murloc Knight. But even if you whiff and get a Murloc Tiny Fin, still, for 2 mana when you're using your hero power anyway, you're essentially getting a 2/2 minion, your Silverhand Recruit, and a Murloc Tiny Fin, which is still a good deal. And for those times when it hits big and gives you the old Merc guy, it can absolutely win you games. Now, Murloc Knight isn't actually just played in Murloc decks. In fact, they're really still, it isn't taking popularity even given Anyfin Can Happen's popularity on the ladder and control Murloc decks. Those don't feature Murloc Knight, so it's not necessarily a Murloc synergy card. It's really more about just mid-range value in general. This is a card that fits into any kind of mid-range or control Paladin just because it potentially holds infinite value and gives you such a powerful board presence bundled into a single card. So yes, it's a Murloc, but it isn't even played in the most popular Murloc Paladin deck. It's so good that it transcends Murlocs and moves to another level entirely. That's what makes Murloc Knight so darn good. Moving on to the number 9 card on my list, right next door, is another 4 mana 3/4 minion, but this time it's Keeper of Uldaman. This new card from the League of Explorers is very strong because of its incredibly flexible Battlecry effect. This allows you to set any minion's attack and health to 3. So Keeper of Uldaman can be used as an aggressive card, setting, say, a Silverhand Recruit's attack and health higher, making a much stronger minion for very low cost. So you're essentially getting something like 5-6 total stats for only 4 mana, not to mention that the 2/2 portion of the buff when you use this offensively has charge, essentially. So there's tons of value bundled into this card when you're using it aggressively on your own minions to buff up something like a Silverhand Recruit, or even like a Nerubian Egg to enable that and make it even more of a pain for opponents to deal with. But also, Keeper of Uldaman can actually be used as a defensive card to negate something like a Dr. Boom or a Molten Giant, taking a 7/7 or an 8/8 and turning that into a 3/3. So Keeper of Uldaman actually fits in both aggressive and control style decks just because it does a variety of things at different points in the game depending on what you need it. It also has 3/4 in stats, which isn't too bad in general. So the flexibility of this card, the raw value that this card provides, and the flexibility that it offers makes it so good in a variety of Paladin decks that it's showing up in everything from control decks even to mid-range decks, even secret decks. Keeper of Uldaman is finding a home. This is definitely one of the strongest cards from League of Explorers in general and deserves a top 10 spot for Paladins already. Moving on to the number 8 slot is a card by the name of Equality. This 2 mana spell changes the health of all minions to 1. Most typically this has been known to be used in combination with Consecration, a card which will show up later on the list. And it's a full board clear anytime you use these 2 cards in combination and there are no Death Rattle minions on the board. Essentially you can wipe out the entire enemy's board, you change everything's health to 1, you kill it all with Consecration. It's been an ultimate tool for control Paladins to recover the board and start to stabilize in the late game no matter how dire things have looked on the other side. Equality is also commonly used with Wild Pyromancer. If you play a Wild Pyromancer and cast Equality, you can clear the board for even cheaper, although that does also affect your own side of the board, so that's a little more situational. But even sometimes this card is just used on its own, allowing all the little minions that Paladin tends to have thanks to Silverhand recruits from their hero power and muster for battle, and allows those little 1/1s to trade into things like Dr. Boom and kill them. So Equality is used in control Paladin decks historically. It's very popular, but it's even used sometimes in aggressive Paladins just to give you that board clear and as a tool to get through taunts or deny an enemy board from trading into your more valuable early game presence. So Equality has a ton of flexibility. It's an incredibly powerful card for only 2 mana. Like, this effect is just so drastic and so big and vital that it's surprising that it all fits into a card for only 2 mana, and it's such a key card for Paladin. It doesn't necessarily show up in all the most popular Paladin decks today, like Secret Paladin or Murloc. Well, it does show up in Murloc Paladin, but it's still so good throughout the history of Hearthstone, and it will continue to be good just because it's so just ridiculously powerful at a base level that Equality ranks pretty high for all Paladin cards at the number 8 slot. Moving on to the number 7 slot, the 7th best Paladin card, we're going to look at Lay on Hands. This 8 mana spell is really one of the most expensive spells in the game, but there's a very good reason for that because it's insanely powerful. Not only does it restore 8 health, which is a huge heal, but it also draws you 3 cards. So historically, Lay on Hands is the perfect late game stabilization card for control or even mid-range Paladins. This allows you to stay alive, but also refill your hand. So you're in a great position in the late game to start dominating and taking over the board, thanks to a card like Lay on Hands that buys you time and also grants you resources. Now at 8 mana, it can be hard to slot in another card on the same turn. You'll often just have to hero power or play a pretty weak 2-drop. But even with that, this card's just so good and buys you so much time and stalls the game out so well that it's usually not a problem. Lay on Hands has been a key piece of late game and even mid-range Paladins for a very long time, and it's a very good card that will remain good for the foreseeable future. Moving on to the number 6th best card for Paladins, I'm going to recommend True Silver Champion for the slot. I really do believe that this is one of the best weapons in Hearthstone to this day. It has actually fallen out of favor in some regards lately for cards like Coghammer, but it's still just so good. For 4 mana, you're getting a 4 attack, 2 charge weapon, which is very comparable to like Deathspite for Warriors, but the effect here is just really strong. Whenever your hero attacks, restore 2 health. So you're gaining 4 total health off of True Silver Champion. It's doing 8 damage for 4 mana. It's really almost like a better fireball in a sense, because usually you don't take too much damage from attacking with it thanks to the health buff, and it packs 8 damage into only 4 mana, which is very good. Not to mention that it has charge, essentially, since it's a weapon you can attack immediately, or you can even save it for future turns if you need to spend the mana now and save the weapon charges for later. So weapons provide so much flexibility. This negates the downside of weapons, which is taking damage to your face, which makes True Silver Champion just such an awesomely good card. I know when I first started playing Hearthstone many, many moons ago, in fact, multiple years ago, anytime I thought a Paladin got True Silver Champion, I just thought it was so ridiculously overpowered and unfair. I didn't understand how a card this strong could be in the game. Now, I've come to realize since then that it's not quite that good, but I still do believe that this card is generally underrated and incredibly powerful. So it takes my number 6 slot for Paladin cards. Moving on to the number 5 card, I'm going to suggest Shielded Minibot. I think this might be the best 2 mana minion in the game, or at least very nearly close to it. It is a 2/2, which is fine for a 2-drop. 2 attack generally trades pretty favorably into most things, but really it's just the Divine Shield that makes this card so scary. It's very difficult to deal with in the early game, and it trades into so many things well that it's just an absolute monster threat on turn 2. If you coin it out on turn 1, it's even scarier. It gives Paladins a very reliable early board presence option. Anytime they get it on turn 2, you know there's going to be a smile on their face. And it fits into a variety of different Paladin decks just as that nice early game answer. It can be played defensively or aggressively thanks to all the different buffs that Paladin has. For instance, dropping a Blessing of Kings on a shielded mini-bot makes it a 6/6 with Divine Shield for 6 mana, which is crazy. That's almost Tyrion levels of value. So this card is just versatile, strong, and very impactful in a metagame where you need early game drops. And that's why it ranks at the number 5 spot for me. Moving on to the 4th best card for Paladins, I'm going to nominate Consecration. This 4 mana spell does 2 damage to all enemies. That means enemy minions and the enemy's face. Now, it doesn't sound like the most efficient board clear in the world when other classes have ways to do just as much area of effect damage, like Flame Strike, for instance, for only 3 extra mana doubles the damage to minions. But Consecration actually has a lot of versatility. You can use it as a direct damage spell to the face, which sometimes you'll just need only 2 damage to win the game, and Consecration provides it. It combos perfectly with Equality for only 6 mana as an ultimate board clear, which is nice. It tidies up the enemy board. It helps you preserve your own board. It's great against other Paladins with lots of little Silverhand recruits. It's been a staple in virtually every Paladin deck forever and always. Sometimes current decks will only run 1 perhaps, but typically they'll make room for 2 up to this day, and always have. So Consecration is just one of those value cards. It's a part of the basic set. It's free, so it's fundamental to Paladin as a class card and to new players, and it's easy to fall in love with and very powerful when you use it. It's surprising how often things end up having 2 or less health, and Consecration allows you to clear the board, even when it's big, scary minions. So this is just a good, solid, valuable, rewarding card that's been around forever and will continue to be a big part of Paladins, I think, and that's why it takes the number 4 spot. Moving on to the 3rd best Paladin card, we're up to the top 3. I'm going to identify Muster for Battle as my 3rd best card. So this 3 mana spell does a couple different things. It summons 3 1/1 Silverhand recruits, which is very nice to get 3 minions that have a total of 3/3 stats for 3 mana. That's actually very reasonable in and of itself. Even if this didn't also equip a 1/4 weapon, I think Muster for Battle might see play, just because 3/3 in stats for 3 is reasonable. And anytime you can divide minions or divide stats across multiple bodies, it can be harder for opponents to deal with. So it's good just for the minions. It's even better with the weapon. Paladins lacked a proactive 3-drop in the past, but Muster for Battle provided them with really the ultimate one. It's one of the best turn 3 plays in the game, because a 1/4 weapon is very good on turn 3 because you can ping stuff off. You can use it to clean up minions. You can even hit the enemy face for just 4 extra damage. So the weapon is good. The recruits are fantastic just because they set up so many different things. It works great in Secret Paladin because having minions on the board means you're more likely to have your secrets triggering. It works great with cards like Quartermaster for mid-range Paladin. It just does so many different things so well and gives you a consistent presence in the early game. Even if they clear your minions, you've still got the weapon. Even if they destroy your weapon with Harrison Jones, you've still got the minions. And that's why Muster for Battle is just so darn good. But it's not the best. We actually have 2 more cards that I think are even better. They probably won't surprise you if you've been playing against Paladins lately. The number 2 card for Paladins is actually Mysterious Challenger. This is the bane of the Hearthstone ladder in recent months. It is the single card that has defined the Secret Paladin class or archetype. It's a 6 mana 6/6 with one of the craziest battle cries in the game. Put 1 of each secret from your deck into the battlefield. Typically that means you'll be placing 5 secrets into play immediately, giving you a huge body and 5 secrets for only 6 total mana, which is absolutely nuts and is what makes Secret Paladin such a strong deck to play. And it has dominated the ranked ladder for a very long time. for that reason. Mysterious Challenger is just an absolute beast of a card. It should be a legendary with these kinds of stats. And even if it was like a 3/3, I still think it would be played. It's just that good because putting that many secrets out is fantastic. So this card's all kinds of value, all kinds of tempo. It's got a huge, difficult to deal with body because it's not susceptible to things like Big Game Hunter. It's really kind of the perfect card and one of the only really strong cards that came out of the Grand Tournament in the first place. So Mysterious Challenger, although still new, is such a big part of the Hearthstone ladder and has redefined so many different ways in which the meta works and operates that it deserves the top, or the second to top spot, even though it's actually only played in one deck throughout Hearthstone's history. But it's not the best card, because there's one card that is arguably the best card in Hearthstone, the most outright powerful, craziest, most valuable, awesome, ridiculous card in the game, and that is Tyrion Fordring. I think that this is probably the best legendary in the game in its own right. I don't think it's necessarily the first one you should craft, because you can only play it in Paladin, but as far as like stats and value and what it does, Tyrion is arguably the best. For 8 mana, here's what you get. You got a 6/6 body, which is very difficult to remove. It trades incredibly well with every important minion in the game. And it has Divine Shield, which means it's even harder to kill, and it trades even better because you get a free attack without it taking damage. It has Taunt, which means opponents have much harder time ignoring it. They have to send minions into its face. And if that wasn't enough, which I actually think it's close to enough right there, that would almost make it worth 8 mana, it also has a Death Rattle effect. That anytime Tyrion dies, you get to equip a 5/3 Ashbringer, which is a ridiculous weapon that would cost something like 6 to 7 mana in its own right. So you're getting a minion that's worth 7 to 8 mana. You're getting a weapon that's worth 7 mana. Something like a 14 mana value, all bundled into a single card for 8 mana, all at once. It's a nightmare for opponents to deal with. I've seen Tyrion Fordring win games all on his own that were otherwise totally unwinnable. This card is good enough to deny your opponents for multiple turns, swing games in your favor, and make you absolutely dominant. Anytime a Mysterious Challenger is followed up by a Tyrion Fordring, your opponents are left to cry and realize that Paladin might just be the outright strongest class in Hearthstone these days, mainly thanks to cards like this one. Tyrion Fordring, to me, has always been the best Paladin card, because this is from the classic set, and unless something crazy happens in Hearthstone in the near future, I think Tyrion Fordring will be the best Paladin card for a very long time to come. So there you have it. That's my top 10 Paladin cards in Hearthstone. If you think I'm crazy, let me know in the comments. If I missed a card, I'd love to hear your thoughts. If I got the order all wrong, why don't you let me know? I appreciate all your time. Thanks so much for watching. And until next time, game on.